Ah, welcome to the first episode of No Skimpy Costume Required, a podcast of Shero Rising. This is the Hero Rising essence. It's about women standing in their power, standing straight up, lifting their heads tall, working with other women to do that. So, this is an especially awesome day for me. One, because finally getting started. It's been a while in the making to get this to happen. And I wanted to make this happen, to launch this on July 11th. So in the last 2 years, I've lost both parents. And in honor of my mom, I published a book called Nobody Told Me, which is a book of poetry about grief and loss. And published it on June 26th, which was her birthday. And then today is July 11th. It was my dad's birthday. He died um, about 6 months ago, 7 months ago. So, and he was really supportive of my aspirations to be a business owner. I think he wanted to do that as well. So that is an aside. Let's get started. Episode 1, from Meek Mouse to Antifragile Shero. And here's what's exciting. We're going to get into more detail as we go along what those words mean and where we're going. I would say to you that the other title of this could be From Having a Sense of Wasted Space on This Planet to Becoming the Hero of Your Own Story. That is the other subtitle. So imagine, I don't have to imagine, I'm on a hospital bed. I got an IV in one arm. There was an IV in the other arm, but I made him take that one out, blood all over the floor. It was a mess. And I would say to you that, let me just make sure. Hopefully the record is on. It is. So one of the things that's going to happen with this is I'm going to be both magnificent and messy, and sometimes just have to pause things and say, am I doing this right? Or what's the scoop? So once upon a time in a hospital bed, IV in this arm. I had an IV in this arm. They wanted to keep it in. I said, take it out. It hurts. Um, they did. Got blood all over the floor. It was really quite a thing. I was experiencing what felt like a molehill in the back of my throat. And apparently, when that happens, it blocks off your ability to breathe. I had left work. I thought, I'll leave a little early. I'm going to stop by the ER. They'll fix this and I can go on. Well, 90 minutes later, I'm still sitting there. I'm pretty chill. I'm saying my go-to prayer. Thank you, God, for everything. I have no complaints whatsoever, so I could just smooth in. I'm fairly sure the ER doctor thought I was drugged or something. He kept coming by and looking at me, do you want something for the pain? I was like, no, because it only hurt when I swallowed. Other than that, it was fine. Also, I didn't want him to get me something like morphine so I couldn't drive home. Mean, nasty doctors do that. And I just chilled, and they weren't sure what was causing it. So I got Benadryl and I got steroids and I got epinephrine and I got a couple other medications because I didn't know, and they knew it was a problem. And about, I don't know, 90 minutes in, he says, well, we're going to admit you to ICU. Now, the admission was one thing, but the ICU was like another because they were very concerned that I'd stop breathing at some point. In this story, there is no villain, right? There's no one to blame. There's just being a human. And sometimes the human body has an agenda of its own. So this is where we have an opportunity to take a pause, take a break, recognize this is an interruption, a delay. I think a lot of times when things like this happen, it's like, oh my God, everything stops and nothing can move forward. But I really feel as a Shero, it's a pause. It's a hold up moment. Let's just and we embrace it. I call them dragons. We're going to talk more about dragons as well. And I've learned the hard way. The dragon doesn't simply interrupt the story. The dragon is the story. The dragon is the story. I'm still here, crown on. No more IVs, thank goodness, and all. So let me talk to you a bit about how I got to this way of thinking and way of being in the world and what I'm inviting you into. One of the pieces that I'm really, really interested in is sharing with you stories, if you will, information that's from a lived experience. Even though I am speaking about Sheroes, which technically one could say are not real, and have sort of a comic background here. This is real life. This is what we're talking about here, how to be a Shero in real life. So I want to open with just an experience of that. And then right now, I want to welcome you once more to No Skimpy Costume Allowed. It's a podcast for women who are moving from feeling a sense of wasted space to living and becoming the Shero of her own story. I'm Murphy. Hi. This is for you. So, welcome to the case of the Meek Mouse moving to becoming the Shero. Maybe you have that moment where most of us can relate to this experience where we feel like we've done everything right. We've taken the step, we've done everything we could to protect ourselves. And yet, something goes awry, right? Something goes wrong. There's this worst possible diagnosis, or maybe somebody passes, or somebody in your world is acknowledged or promoted or held out for work you feel like you've really earned. Maybe, like me, you walked out of a building with a box and somebody, well-meaning, identified you as being brave when you were really scared or furious or excited. But brave might not have been the word that you would have chosen in that moment. This is oh, this is when every woman has this is when one can feel like they've been quietly written off, passed over, replaced from when she was busy recovering, busy showing up, busy doing the work nobody clapped for. It's an aha, but it's also like stunning, right? It's like, wow, I worked all this time. I took the extra classes. I dealt with my mother-in-law, what have you. And I'm still not recognized at the level that I feel I should have been recognized. This is the case for if you've ever had this experience where someone asked you how you were and you said fine, and then you knew absolutely you were not fine. You were not in the right place. This isn't a compliment. It's a case file. And we're here to open it because that happens for many of us, where our expectation is here, our understanding is here, something different happens, and we're like, wait a minute, this does not make sense. So, in short, I want to give you my own origin story. It has a lot of pieces, but there's a part of it I do want to tell you about right now. Because I was that person with the box walking out, and it was a really mixed feeling day because I had just participated in a wonderful going away celebration where my staff created a crown for me. Yeah, it was paper and a cape and a sash, and I got to sit up on a table and sort of hold court with all the staff. And then walking into the room was a red carpet. I don't know that I will, as long as I'm capable of this, ever forget that time. At the and it, what happened is I worked at this company for some time. I was absolutely doing the work that I loved. I was really good at that work. That was many years ago, and I'm really astonished to find that I'm just now kind of getting back to that work because the ending was so catastrophic is the word, but more of how I was like, wow, just totally stunned, totally taken. I was like, wow. So I had a health challenge. I was out for 6 weeks. I came back, and the CEO had decided that there would be a vice president position created. And the words were between myself and another individual, if one of you applies, great, or both of you. If not, we'll go outside the company. And of course, both of us applied. And having dealt with this particular manager before, I knew the fix was in. And I was determined to at the very least, give the CEO pause before handing the position over to this other candidate. And I can remember still sitting on my bed thinking, no, just help me to show up powerfully. And I was pleased because this decision that was supposed to take 2 weeks ended up taking over 2 months. And the other gentleman was really quite frustrated by that. So the decision was made. And part of what was spectacular about this was I was told that once he was put in that position, I had a choice of either being fired or laid off. Fired or laid off. I was stunned. Yeah. So I lost my job. Yeah, that's what happened while I was gone for 6 weeks. So I'm very suspicious of situations like that, as you can imagine. And I'm walking out with my box after this wonderful celebration with my staff. And the last thing I said to everyone is, wow, I guess the best man got the job, because I wasn't going to just quietly move out the door. I knew I was the best person for the job. I knew it, and they learned that later, but so be it. I'm leaving. The other part that came really clear is people are not my source. The universe is my source. There's something so much bigger at play, my source. And to be honest, it took a year for me to get myself right again. I spent a good time watching Jerry Springer lying upside down on my bed. But after that time, I continued to learn more about myself and look at how I went to this session with a woman at my church and some others, and she said she was laid off, and she said she just used the time to work on her garden. And I was like, wow. I don't have to experience this as something that's happening to me, like trying to kill me off. It's just something that's happening alongside of me, with me. We used to say in mentoring, we don't want to do to or for someone, we want to do with. And that's what the dragon is. The dragon, we blow smoke and all of this, but the dragon shows up to help us become more of who we came here to be. And if we acknowledge the dragon that way, the season or the period or the event becomes much more palatable as we go along. One of the pieces I want to be sure to share with you is that I want to share dragon tales, and I'm going to get. I know that one of the things I'm just open to is making this be more smooth as we go along. Not today. Let me just bottom line this. The difference between the Meek mouse and the Antifragile Shero. The mouse absorbs what's happening. The mouse gets smaller, right? Maybe less voice, maybe picks up an unhealthy habit and feels that nobody notices her at all. But the Shero, which is what we're going to be doing, names the dragon, faces the dragon, and comes back out of the situation more herself when she went in. And that's what happened for me. And what I'm in awe of is that this is a continual situation. I feel like as long as we're alive, we're not done yet. I'm not anti-fragile because the dragons stopped showing up. They still do. I'm anti-fragile because they don't get to write my Shero's story. Not anymore. I don't know if they ever did, but not anymore. So what I'm going to be talking about does feel a little exciting and a little dangerous. One of the situations that shaped me was working in an environment where the work that we did was part of a national organization. And periodically, the national organization would send someone out and say, "Hey, are you doing what we'd have you do?" And hopefully we could say yes, but they would spend a week and snoop through our books and ask us questions and all those things. This particular time, the next week, I go into the office and I'm pulled into the CEO's office and the program director. And apparently, after the auditors left, they received a letter of complaint about how the office was run in detail. And I can't say that it wasn't true. However, it was signed by me. My name was on there. It wasn't my signature, but my name was on there. And that was stunning. That was just, it was stunning. And I was thankful that the CEO didn't really, I could tell she didn't think I wrote it. Never mind, that would have been kind of stupid, but, and neither did the program director. But no one ever came forward in the office to claim that. It was very awkward working there for some time after that. If it was taken up with the other staff, I don't know. So I could have viewed that in a number of ways, right? I could have gotten smaller. I could have stepped out. I could have quit the job. I could have been afraid of everybody in there. But that was when I was starting to understand that there's just dragons in the world. And sometimes there's alligators in the water. I remember being very clear when I was 21 that I would not participate in office politics. Yeah, that didn't really work out. So there's alligators in the water, and we get to watch our back or pay attention to it so that even when we're not looking for a fight, that's a kind of a dragon as well. They don't all roar, and some of them are quiet and wearing your name. This next segment I want to start building on, and right now we're just going to name it briefly. And that is what I call the mobile phone booth. You know, with Superman, he'd be something, you know, the bad guy that runs down the street and steals the old woman's purse. Excuse me a moment. And Superman, well, it's probably a bigger deal, goes, finds a phone booth because they were very prominent. And can you just imagine how they decided that in the editing room or in the creation room? And he comes, pulls his glasses off, and then he comes out in his leotard and flies off and go gets the purse back. One, we don't have a lot of phone booths around anymore. But two, sometimes you need this. You need that phone booth in a moment. So we're going to create and develop and define this idea of you having your own mobile phone booth. Don't you love that concept? I do. So when you step into that phone booth, it could be 30 seconds. It could be something that you're going to refine, a process. I start counting down 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and I'm her. Now, that doesn't mean the fear goes away or the panic goes away. It just means that I'm bringing in that I'm remembering who I am. I'm remembering why I'm here, how I want to show up. And I understand that it feels unsafe. And I'm going to do what I can to keep me safe, right? And go from there. And some of that has to do with leaning into our own senses. Again, more to talk about, but just for this episode especially, I wanted to be brief and get to the point. And well, maybe for all of them, but right here and now, as I continue to sort this out. So I invite you this week to find your crown. What's your crown? Because in this space, I'm a queen and you're a queen. We're communicating as queens. And I say that because we're coming as the best version of ourselves. We know what that is. When I step into my queen sense, I know. And what's your crown? Be creative. Get a physical crown. It doesn't have to be a coat. It could be a walk-up song. I love that in baseball. It could be a phrase you say in the mirror. It could be counting. I know there's one gentleman that really, when he puts his glasses on, he knows he's stepping into his super person. It changes your posture. One of the things I know for me is putting my hands akimbo, right? Can do that as well. Let's start working on that. Start cultivating that. One of the great parts about this process that we're going to be using is we're going to follow the feminine, which can be is creative. It's circular. It's it's circuitous, right? So this is not a one and done. What's your crown this week? And then we build on it from there. What tools work for you? Because as you continue to step more into your role as a Shero and really own that part of your story, then you continue to rise. This is Shero rising. I want you to continue to step in and step up, step in and step up. It's ongoing until that last breath. I just want to ruin the ending right now that it doesn't stop. This is not about I'm not going to say that you've gotten to this point. You're a Shero now. You're already a Shero. And now we're expanding on this. we're growing who you are. We're consciously doing it because some things we learn, right? As we go along, we figure out, and then we think we got it all. But then to go the rest of the way up the mountain, we have to consciously make that decision. That's where we are right now. So I'm also going to give you a quest each week. The quest for episode 1 is to name one dragon. I've named a couple dragons, but name one dragon, just one, not more, just one, you little overachievers out there. Something that's been quietly written off, dismissed, or absorbed without you ever calling it what it is. Okay. Write it down or say it out loud or say it in your car when you're alone, but name the dragon. I'm going through a medical challenge right now, and so I call it, what do I call it? I have a couple names for it. One of them is chemo season. The other is fire horse, fire dragon, right? Because fire horse, because this is the year of the fire horse. And I love using the phrase season because it suggests a beginning and an end. And it's not nice and neat. It doesn't begin on the first day of June or whatever. But I know I'm in something that's manageable or that has any beginning and an end point, and we go from there. That's your whole assignment. Do not slay the dragon. Just acknowledge the dragon. We're just going to say, yep, I see you there. Maybe you name it a girly name. Maybe you draw it. And when you found the name of your dragon, come find me right here and say, Episode 1. Hey, this is my one dragon. I named it. And we go from there. That's it. That's your quest. Thank you for being and hanging with me on my first episode 1 of No Skimpy Costume Required. And if you're wondering about that name, I guess I ought to throw that out. So in my experience, when we see Sheroes, women superheroes, they're typically in very skimpy costumes. They're form-fitting and it emphasizes their body parts. And I'm not saying don't look great. I'm not saying don't dress to the nines. What I'm saying is you don't have to have a size 1 body to be a Shero. You can be lumpy and frumpy like some of us and still be a Shero. So if this resonated with you, if you want to know more, come back. We're going to keep going on this journey. I have resources I'm going to pass out on this give out and make things more tangible as you go. I will add one more little trick of being in a Shero. We learn as we go. And we see that piece that people say a lot, progress is better than perfection. And so that's why I'm building this thing on the way up. So some things are ready to go and some things are coming into shape. And some things, I don't know yet because you haven't said, hey, Murph, we need a little more of this. Thank you for being here. I'm Murphy Bonds. Go be fabulous. Go be your Shero. Come back. See me sometime. Thank you.